While strolling through the park one day, in the merry month of May, I was taken by surprise by a pair of roguish eyes. In a moment my poor heart was stole away. A smile was all she gave to me. Of course we were as happy as can be. I immediately raised my hat, and finally she remarked, I never shall forget that lovely afternoon. I met her at the fountain in the park. Tell me, pretty maiden, are there any more at home like you?
There are a few, kind sir, but simple girls and proper too.
Then tell me, pretty maiden, what these very simple girlies do.
Kind sir, their manners are perfection and the opposite of mine.
Then take a little walk with me, and then I can see what a most particular girl should.
I may love you too well to let you go and flirt with those at home, you know, for I must love someone.
Then why not me?
For I must love someone really, and it might as well be you. Oh, Father, dear Father, come home with me now. The clock in the steeple strikes 1. You said you were coming right home from the shop as soon as your day's work was done. The fire has gone out, the house is all dark, and Mother's been watching since tea. With poor brother Benny so sick in her arms, and no one to help her but me. Come home, come home, come home. Please, Father, dear Father, come home.
Do. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. Won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. Casey would waltz with the strawberry blonde, and the band played on. He'd glide across the floor with the girl he adored, and the band played on. His brain was so loaded it nearly exploded. The poor girl was shake with alarm. He'd ne'er leave the girl with the strawberry curl, and the band played on. Sweetheart, I'm her beau. She's my Annie, I'm her Joe. side, west side, all around the town. The tucks sang ring-a-rosy, London Bridge is falling down. Boys and girls together, me and Mamie O'Rourke. We tripped the light fantastic on the sidewalks of New York. While strolling through the park one day, in the merry month of May, I was taken by surprise by a pair of roguish eyes. In a moment my poor heart was stole away. A smile was all she gave to me. Of course we were as happy as can be. I immediately raised my hat, and finally she remarked, I never shall forget that lovely afternoon. I met her at the fountain in the park. Tell me, pretty maiden, are there any more at home like you?
There are a few, kind sir, but simple girls and proper too.
Then tell me, pretty maiden.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Arizona Homeschool Theater Group's production of The Importance of Being Earnest in Zoom. My name is Christie. I'm the artistic director here and directed this show, and I'm had such a wonderful time with these young actors, and I know you will today as well. AZHT, for short, has been around for over 13 years producing local theater with our local youth community, mostly homeschoolers. Occasionally we get some school kids joining us as well, and we always enjoy it. We're happy that many of you are able to join us from far away because we're working in this platform rather than live on stage, though we are all eager to return to live on stage as soon as possible, but we are enjoying the Zoom platform in the meantime. This is our first full production in Zoom with costumes, sets, props, and all the like. Though we did try our hand at Zoom performances last fall with 2 workshops and showcases for Shakespeare Zoom and picture book theater, and we quite enjoyed that. We've continued to explore both the benefits and the limitations of Zoom this semester. I have loved The Importance of Being Earnest ever since I had the opportunity to perform Act 2 as Gwendolyn back in a high school showcase, and enjoyed it so much, and I enjoy it even more now. I hope you really enjoy it. It's fun, it's farcical, it's satire, it's a comedy of manners, and it was the predecessor to the modern sitcom that we all enjoy so much today. These actors and their families have worked very hard to bring this to you and to create a little magic in the virtual space. So I hope you are able to enjoy it from wherever you are. If you're unfamiliar with Zoom, you might need to turn the volume on your computer all the way up. We're broadcasting as loud as we can, and you control your own personal volume. You also, to some degree, control your own view. Now, I have it set that you will follow my view, which is the view I want you to see as far as panelists, actors coming and going. But some people, for some reason, will see whatever their view is set to. So I recommend setting it to gallery view and to hide non-video participants, so you don't see just black screens for the actors that are off stage, and instead focus only on the active actors, or me, at the time that we are on the screen. So again, that's gallery view, hide non-video participants. I want to reassure you that we cannot hear you, we cannot see you, but we will be happy to chat with you in the chat space at the end of the show. Please refrain from using the chat once the show begins, because we do use that for some backstage communication, and you can post your comments there after the show, as well as any questions that you have for the actors in the Q&A box that you can find at the bottom of your screen. Let's see here. The show runs about 1 hour and 40 minutes. There will be 2 5-minute intermissions, one between each of the acts. There are 3 acts, so 2 intermissions. That will give us time to reset, play a little music for you, and you can run to the restroom or get yourselves a snack. So very brief intermissions, but there's no line for the restroom, so it should be enough. As always, we encourage you to laugh and clap and cheer. I know we won't be able to hear you this time, but I think you'll have more fun and we'll feel your energy out there. As mentioned, we'll have that talkback session at the end of the show with the actors, so please stick around if you have the time. But you can come and go through that as needed without interrupting anything. That is a Zoom benefit. You can stay for as long as you like and come and go as you like. So without further ado, I'd like to present to you The Importance of Being Earnest.
Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
I'm sorry for that, for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. But instead I play with a wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, by the way, Lady, I see from your book that on Thursday night, when Lord Shawman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that in a bachelor's establishment the servants invariably drink the champagne?
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I've often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I've had very little experience of it up to the present. I've only been married once, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I am much interested in your family life now.
No, sir, it isn't a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem, as a class, to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours, neighbours.
Got nice neighbours in all part of Shropshire?
Shropshire. Yes, of course. Hello, why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well, but I don't think Aunt Augusta will quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
I love her, and I'm come down to town expressly to propose to her.
Thought you were come for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love. But there's really nothing romantic in a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. Then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
I've no doubt about that, dear Algie. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Do not touch the cucumber sandwiches. They were ordered especially for Aunt Augusta. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolen. Gwendolen's devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter it is, too.
Well, you need not eat at all. Perhaps as if you were married to her already. You're not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
I don't give you my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin. Before I allow you to marry her, you first have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Here's the cigarette case you left in the smoking room the last time you dined here.
Do you mean to say that you have had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you would let me know. I have been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I've been more than usually hard up.
There's no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
Makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours at all.
Of course it's mine. You have seen me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is the present from someone of the name of Cecily, and you just said you don't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algie.
Yes, but why does your aunt, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, call her own nephew her uncle? From little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. Although your name isn't Jack at all, it is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You've always told me it was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You're the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It's perfectly absurd you're saying that your name isn't Ernest. It is on your cards. Here is one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I shall keep this as proof if you ever try to deny it to me or to Gwendolyn or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tumber 12, calls her own nephew her uncle. Come on, old boy, best have the whole thing out at once. Might I say that I've always suspected you of being a Bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of that now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
I shall review to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to tell me why you were Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation and pray make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there is nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it is perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily lives at my place in the country, under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss PRISM.
Where's that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
But I suspected that, my dear fellow. I've Bunburied all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now, go on, while you Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
My dear Algie, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It is one's duty to do so. But as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to either one's health or one's happiness. In order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Ernest, who lives in the Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear fellow, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. One life would be very tedious if it were either. What you really are is a Bunburist. I've always suspected you of being a Bunburist, and you are the one of the most advanced Bunburists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Ernest so that you may come to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable invalid friend called Bunbury so that I may be able to go down to the country whenever I choose. Why, if it wasn't for Bunbury's exceedingly bad health, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight, for I've been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine anywhere with me tonight.
Yes, you are very careless about sending out invitations. It's very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people more than not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
But I dine with my Aunt Augusta on Monday. Once a week is more than enough time to dine with one's own relations. Now, if I distract Aunt Augusta for 10 minutes while you propose to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you at Willis's tonight?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I distract Gwendolyn for 10 minutes, while Aunt Augusta for 20 minutes, while you propose to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you at Willis's tonight?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about eating. It is so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. That would leave absolutely no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I am sorry if we are a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call upon dear Lady Torben. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea. And one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come sit here, Gwendolen?
Thanks, Mama. I am quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market today, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Aunt Augusta, I am greatly distressed about there being no cucumbers in the market this morning, not even for ready money.
This really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now. Thank you, Algernon. I've quite a treat for you tonight.
That is a great disappointment. I'm afraid I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight, after all.
I should hope not. It would put my table completely out.
The fact is, I have just received a telegram about poor Bunbury. He is very ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to be suffering from curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Bunbury's a dreadful invalid.
Well, I think it is high time that Mr. Bunbury made up his mind on whether or not he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury, from me, to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me.
I'll speak to Bunbury about it, if he's still conscious, although I can assure you that he'll be all right on Saturday. Now, I can run over the program I've drawn out if you'll step to the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. That is very thoughtful of you. Gwendolen, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mama.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I feel quite certain that they mean something else. And that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
And I would like to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I have ever met. Since I met you.
I'm quite well aware of that fact. For me, you've always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, in an age of ideals, and my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Ernest. Something in that name inspires absolute confidence.
You really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me. But you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is, but supposing it was something else.
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculation, it has very little reference to the facts of real life as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolen, I think there are a lot of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack? No. There is very little music in the name of Jack, if any at all, indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She will probably never know the entrancing pleasures of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolen, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet.
May I propose to you now?
I think it's an admirable opportunity, and to spare you any possible disappointment, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolen?
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolen, will you marry me?
Of course, darling. How long have you been about it? I'm afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
My own darling, I have never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. Oh, Ernest, what wonderful eyes you have. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when other people are present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, Miss Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
Mr. Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
Pardon me, you are nothing of the kind. When you do become engaged to someone, I or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a young girl as a surprise. It is hardly a matter she should be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have a few questions to put you, Mr. Worthing. While I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolen, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mamma!
In the carriage, Gwendolen. Gwendolen, the carriage!
Yes, Mamma.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. However, I am quite ready to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I am glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I am of the opinion that if a man desires to get married, he should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. Really, the whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes, and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory.
I own a country house, with some land, of course, attached to it, about 1,500 acres, but I don't depend on that for my real income.
A country house? You do have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolen could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square.
What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that can be easily altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. Now on to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents. It would be nearer to the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman who had the first-class ticket for the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
In a handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell. I was in a handbag. A somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
And in what locality did this Mr. Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate, bred in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life, which reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution, and I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to.
May I ask you then, what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolen's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my apologies, and to make a definite effort, at any rate, to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it got to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. Goodness sake, Alfie, don't play that ghastly tune. How idiotic you are.
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say Gwendolen refused you.
Oh, Gwendolen is right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. I never met such a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure Lady Bracknell is one. At any rate, she is a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. I beg your pardon, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your own aunt in that way before you.
Oh, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that allows me to put up with them. Relations are a simply tedious pack of people.
You don't think there is any chance of Gwendolen becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man becomes like this. That is his. By the way, did you tell Gwendolen about your being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
The truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman. Besides, by the end of the week, I shall have got rid of Ernest. I'll say he died in Paris, carried off by a severe chill.
But doesn't this Miss Cardew, wasn't she a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest? Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, Cecily isn't a silly, romantic girl, I'm glad to say. She has a capital appetite, goes on long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I'd rather like to see Cecily.
I will take very good care that you never do. She is excessively pretty, and is only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolen that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
One doesn't just blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolen are perfectly certain to be extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything in the world that half an hour after they have met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that after they've called each other a lot of other things first. Gwendolen, upon my word!
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolen, I don't think I can allow us at all.
Oh, Miss, we may never be married. From the look on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. Many of the influence I had over Mamma I lost at the age of 3. But nothing she can do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolen.
The story of your romantic origins, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
It may be necessary to do something desperate. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one.
Algie, you may turn round now.
Thanks, I've turned round already.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, Miss Fairfax?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, then.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow morning, I'm going bunkering.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully tomorrow will be a fine day.
Yes, it never is, sir.
Lane, you're a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
There's a sensible intellectual girl. Only girl I've ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm a little anxious about poor Bunbury is all.
If you're not careful, your friend Bunbury is going to get you into a serious scrape someday.
I love scrapes. They're the only things that are never serious.
That is nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Casey would waltz with the strawberry blonde, and the band played on. He'd glide across the floor with the girl he adored, and the band played on. But his brain was so loaded, it nearly exploded. The poor girl would shake with alarm. He'd ne'er leave the girl with the strawberry curl, and the band played on. In the good old summertime, in the good old summertime, strolling through the shady lane with my baby mine, you hold her hand and she holds yours, and that's a very good sign that she's your tootsie wootsie in the good old summertime. My bunny lies over the ocean, my bunny lies over the sea, my bunny lies over the ocean. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me, to me. Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. School days, dear old golden rule days, reading and writing and
arithmetic, taught to the tune of a hickory stick. You were my queen in calico, I was your bashful Romeo. You wrote on my slate, I love you, Joe, when we were a couple of kids. Oh, when we were a couple of kids.
Cecily, Cecily, your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it at page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious I think he cannot be quite well.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. You mustn't forget his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have good influence over him, Miss Prism. You, I'm sure, certainly would.
I cannot say I would desire to reclaim him. I'm not in favor of this modern mania of turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so let him reap. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to record the most wonderful secrets of my life. If I did not write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novels, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you? How very clever you are. I hope it did not end happily.
The good ended happily, the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript unfortunately was abandoned. I use the word in a sense of lost or mislaid. To your work, child. These speculations are profitless.
But I see dear Dr. CHASUBLE coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I'm sure it would do her much good to have a short stroll in the park with Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
Oh, I know that, Miss Prism. But I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking of that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from bees. Ahem. But I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Laetitia, Doctor.
A classical allusion, merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a stroll with you. I find I have a headache after all, and a walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might as go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B for the RW. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. He said he was anxious to speak with you privately for a moment.
Tell Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You're my little cousin Cecily, aren't you?
I'm not little. I believe, in fact, I am more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily, and you, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest, my wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I'm really not wicked at all, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and really being good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, of course I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
And now that you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I'm sure it was very pleasant.
It's much pleasanter being here with you.
I cannot see how you are here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
It is a great disappointment. I'm obliged to go up to town Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I am anxious to miss.
I still think you should wait till Uncle Jack gets back. I'm sure he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
About your emigrating. He's gone up to town to buy your outfit.
Oh, I would never let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said on Wednesday night at dinner that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Well, my thoughts of the next world and Australia have not been particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I am not that. That is why I want you to make it your mission to reform me. You will make it your mission to reform me, won't you, cousin Cecily?
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Then you wouldn't mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You look a little worse.
That's because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
A Marshall Neal?
I'd rather a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think you should talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Well, Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You're the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
A snare that any sensible man would like to be caught in.
I don't think I should like to catch a sensible man. I shouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, dear doctor. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand, a womanthrope never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase.
You do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often I'm told not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where is Cecily? Mr. Worthing.
Mr. Worthing?
This is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned much sooner than expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother.
More shameful debts and extravagance.
Stilling is life of pleasure.
Dead.
Your brother is dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I offer you my sincere condolence. You have at least the consolation of knowing that you were always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many faults, but it is a sad, sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night.
And was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to draughts.
That reminds me, Dr. Chasuble, you do know how to christen, all right? That is, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I have often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they don't seem to know what thrift is.
But is there any particular infant in whom you are interested, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child, dear doctor, no. The fact is, I would like to be christened myself this afternoon, if you have nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already?
I don't remember anything about it. But I don't suppose that you think I'm a little too old now?
Not at all. The sprinkling, and indeed the immersion of adults, is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need have no apprehensions. The sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed I think advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what hour would you wish this ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot round at about 5:30, if that would suit you.
Perfectly, perfectly. Now, dear Mr. Worthing, I will not intrude any longer into the house of sorrow. I would merely beg you not to be too much bowed down by grief. What seems to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of the extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack, oh, I am pleased to see you back. But what horrid clothes you've got on. Do go and change them.
Cecily.
What's the matter, Uncle Jack? Do look happy. I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
That is nonsense. I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. I'll go tell him to come in.
These are very joyful tidings.
After we had all been resigned to his loss, his sudden return seems to me peculiarly distressing.
My brother is in the dining room. I don't know what it all means. I think it perfectly absurd. Good heavens!
Brother John, I have come down from town to tell you that I'm very sorry for all the trouble I caused you and intend to lead a better life in the future.
Well, Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down here disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Oh, don't say that. Miss Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury. And surely there is much good in one who leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he has been talking about Bunbury, has he? Well, I won't allow him to talk to you about Bunbury or about anything else. It is enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Although I admit that the faults were all on my side, Brother John's coldness to me is peculiarly painful.
Well, Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time I shall ever do it.
I think we might leave the two brothers together.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You young scoundrel, Algy, you have got to get out of this place as soon as possible. I don't allow any Bunburying here.
I've put Mr. Ernest's luggage in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose that is all right?
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Ernest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I haven't been called back to town at all.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasure in the smallest degree.
I can quite understand that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why on earth don't you go up and change? It's perfectly childish to be in deep mourning for a man who would be spending a week in your house as a guest.
You're not going to be spending a week in my house as a guest, or as anything else. You've got to leave by the 4:05 train.
I can't leave you while you're in mourning. It'd be most unfriendly of me. If I were in mourning, you would stay with me, I suppose. I should think it most unkind if you didn't.
Where will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you are quick about it. I've never seen anyone take so long to dress with such little results.
Well, at any rate, it is better than being always overdressed as you are.
If I'm occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by always being immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous, your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. This Bunburying, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it has been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that is everything. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's going to send me away.
And have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It is very painful parting.
It is always very painful to part from people whom one has known for a brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from one whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
Dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope I shall not offend you, Cecily, in saying that you seem to me to be the visible personification of perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Oh, do you keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it.
Oh, no. You see, it is simply a young girl's records of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume forms, I hope you will buy a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. Go on, I'm quite ready for more. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. I don't know how to spell cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have been in love with you, wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make sense, does it?
Cecily.
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Oh, tell her to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying till next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Jack. I don't care for anyone in the whole world but you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
Why, you silly boy, of course. We have been engaged the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months?
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become to be engaged?
Well, ever since Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism, and a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
And when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last, worn out by your complete ignorance to my existence, I, determined to resolve the matter one way or another, and after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear old tree here. The next day, I bought this ring in your name.
Oh, did I give you that? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It is the excuse I've always given you for leading such a bad life. And this is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
My letters? But, Cecily, I haven't written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote 3 times a week and sometimes oftener.
Darling, may I read them?
Oh no, they would make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I had broken off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can't read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
On the 22nd of last March. On the 22nd of last March.
Why did you break off the engagement? What had I done, Cecily? I'd done nothing at all. I'm very hurt to hear you broke off the engagement, particularly when the weather was so charming.
It wouldn't have been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
You dear romantic boy.
You'll never break off the engagement again, Cecily.
Oh, I don't think I could break it off now that I have actually met you. Besides, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You must not laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone of the name of Ernest. The name inspires one with absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But couldn't you love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance?
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
Oh, my dear, sweet, loving Cecily, I really can't see why you'd object to the name of Algernon. It's a very aristocratic sort of name. Why, half the chaps in the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, couldn't you love me if my name was Algie?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear I wouldn't be able to give you my undivided attention.
Your rector here is fairly experienced in all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh yes, Dr. CHASUBLE is a very learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once for a most important christening. I mean important business.
Oh.
I shan't be away more than a half hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th, and that I have only just met you today, it would be very painful to part from you for so long a period of time. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy. I like his hair so much. I shall copy his proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing. On most important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Is it Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Oh. Pray ask the lady to come here, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax, most likely one of the good elderly women associated with Uncle Jack in one of his philanthropic works in London.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray let me introduce myself. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew? What a very sweet name. Something tells me we're going to be great friends. I already like you more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we have known each other such a comparatively short period of time. Pray sit down.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose?
Oh no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some other female relative of advanced years, resides here also?
Oh, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations. I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
It is strange. He never mentioned to me he had a ward. How very secretive of him. He grows more and more interesting hourly. I'm not quite sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. In fact, if I may speak candidly.
Pray do. I think that whenever anyone has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candor, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolen. Did you say Ernest?
Yes.
But it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say that they have not been on good terms for a long time.
That accounts for it. Cecily, you've lifted a load off my mind. I was growing almost anxious. Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian?
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon?
Dearest Gwendolen, Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
I think there must be some slight error, Miss Cardew. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
You must be under some misconception, Gwendolen. See, Mr. Ernest Worthing proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is certainly strange. He asked me to be his wife yesterday at 5:30. If you care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel anywhere without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read on the train. I am so sorry, dear Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you. But I believe I have the prior claim.
I feel bound to point out, dearest Gwendolen, that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
Well, if the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten into, I shall never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous.
You suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you?
Shall I lay tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there very many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that's why you live in town.
Personally, I cannot understand how anybody manages to exist in the country. If anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar isn't fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Oh, bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen in the best of houses nowadays.
Hand that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my cup with lumps of sugar, and though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
Seems to me, Miss Fairfax, I'm trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you may have many other calls of similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest, my own Ernest.
Gwendolen, darling.
A moment. May I ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
I thought there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. You see, this is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack? Oh.
Here is Ernest.
My love.
A moment, Ernest. Are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
What lady? Good heavens, Gwendolen?
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolen. I mean to Gwendolen.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
I felt there must be some slight error, Miss Cardew. But that gentleman is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrieff.
Algernon? Moncrieff? Oh, are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Are you really called Jack?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name certainly is John. It has been John for years.
Gross deception has been practiced on the both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wronged Gwendolen.
You will call me sister, will you not?
But there is just one question I would be like to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to ask you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is a matter of some importance to us that we know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolen, Cecily, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I've never had a brother in my life, and I have not the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never had a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, dear Cecily, that neither of us are engaged to anybody.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you would call bunburying, I suppose.
It is. It's a wonderful Bunbury. The most wonderful Bunbury I've ever had in my life.
Well, the only small satisfaction I have in the whole of this wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country quite so often as you used to, dear Algie, and a very good thing, too.
Your brother's looking a little off colour, isn't he? You'll be able to go on up to town as often as your wicked custom was. Not a bad thing either.
As for Miss Cardew, I must say that your taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is quite inexcusable, say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defence at all for your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced woman like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she's my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolen, that is all. I love her.
I simply want to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There's certainly no chance of your marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't think that there is much likelihood of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
How can you sit there calmly eating muffins while we are in this horrible trouble I can't make out? You seem to me perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would get on my cuffs. I must always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all, under the circumstances.
I'm in trouble. Eating is the only thing that consoles me.
Well, that is no reason that you should eat them all in that greedy way.
But you just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless of you. That is a very different thing.
Yes, but the muffins are the same.
Algie, I wish to goodness you would go.
But I have just made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 6:15 under the name of Ernest.
I made arrangements this morning with Dr. Chasuble to be christened myself at 5:30, and I naturally will take the name of Ernest. I have a right to be christened if I like. There is no evidence that I have ever been christened by anybody. It's entirely different in your case. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I have not been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That is the important thing.
So I knew my constitution can stand it. I beg you very well. You can't have forgotten that someone very closely connected to you was nearly carried off yesterday by a severe chill.
Algernon, I have already told you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
I've not quite finished my tea yet, and there's still one muffin left.
by side, two little maids, whose food dress just alike, hair down in braids, looking on pinafores, stockings of red, little sunbonnets light on each pretty head. When school was over, secrets they'd tell, whispering arm in arm down by the well. One day a quarrel came, hot tears were shed. You can play in our yard, but the other said, I don't want to play in your yard. I don't like you anymore. You'll be sorry when you see me sliding down our cellar door. You can holler down our rain bell, you can climb our apple tree. I don't want to play in your yard if you won't be good to me. Other miss. Quarrels are soon made up, sealed with a kiss. Then hand in hand again, happy they go. Friends all through like to be, they love each other so. Soon school days pass away, sorrows and bliss. But love remembers yet, quarrels and kiss. In sweet dreams of childhood, we hear the cry, you can play in our yard, and the old reply, I don't want to play in your yard. I don't like you anymore. You'll be sorry when you see me sliding down a cellar door. You can holler down a rain barrel. No, you can't. You can climb our apple tree. I don't want to play in your yard if you won't be good to me.
I hear them on a man a-poaching. With stealthy steps the pirates are approaching.
We are not coming for plain road, a story General Stanley told. We seek a penalty 50-fold for General Stanley's story. We seek a penalty 50-fold. We seek a penalty 50-fold. We seek a penalty 50-fold for General Stanley's story.
They come in force with stealthy stride. Our obvious course is now to hide.
With cat like thread upon a baby steel, in silent thread, a cautious way we feel. Close down the door, we never speak a word. A fly's footfall would be distinctly heard. So stealthily the pirate creeps while all the household soundly sleeps. One way to further sea, close to navigation, take another station. Let's steady piracy, rid the little burglary. One way to further sea, close to navigation, take another station. Let's steady piracy, rid the little burglary.
Here's your crowbar and
They have been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They're looking at us. What effrontery.
They are coming in. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly, it is the only thing to do now.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolen, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrieff, kindly answer me this question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian?
In order that I might have an opportunity of meeting you.
That seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't, but that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. In matters of great importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what possible explanation can you offer me for your pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have an opportunity to coming up to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts on the subject, but I intend to crush them. The explanation seemed to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrieff said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute indifference.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes, I mean no.
True, I had forgotten there are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which one of us should tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Could we not speak at the same time?
Excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Would you take the time for me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names?
Is that all?
But we are going to be christened.
This afternoon.
For my sake, you're willing to do this terrible thing?
I am.
Please me, you're ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How absurd to talk about equality of the sexes, where self-sacrifice is concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
Darling.
Darling.
Lady Bracknell.
Oh, good heavens.
Gwendolen, what does this mean?
Merely that I'm engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
You are nothing of the kind. Sit down. Sit down immediately. You must clearly understand, Mr. Worthing, that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as indeed on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolen, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind. And now, as regards Algernon. Algernon!
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
May I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
Oh, Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury's somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury's dead.
Dead? When did Mr. Bunbury die?
Oh, I killed him this afternoon. I mean, he died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Oh, Bunbury? He was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage?
No, Aunt Augusta. I mean, he was found out. The doctors found out that Bunbury could not live, so Bunbury died.
He seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. Well, now that we have finally got rid of Mr. Bunbury, may I ask, Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding in what seems to me a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon.
Mr. Moncrieff and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there is anything peculiarly exciting in the air of this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that go on seems to me to be considerably above the proper average that statistics have laid down for our guidance. Mr. Worthing, may I ask if Miss Cardew has any connection at all to any of the larger railway stations in London? I merely desire information. Until yesterday, I had no idea there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, Jervis Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporran, Fifeshire NB.
3 addresses always inspire confidence, even in tradesmen. So far, I am satisfied.
How extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I have also in my possession, you will be pleased to hear, certificate of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, confirmation, vaccination, and the measles, both the German and English variety.
Gwendolen, the time approaches for our departure. You've not a moment to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I suppose I must ask if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh, about £130,000 in the funds. That is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000, and in the funds. Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. Few girls nowadays have any really solid qualities. Any of the qualities that last and improve with time. We live, I regret to say, in an age of surfaces. Sweet child, your dress is sadly simple, and your hair is almost as nature might have left it. But that can all be easily altered. A thoroughly experienced French maid produces a very marvellous result in a very brief space of time. Kindly turn round, dear child. Chin a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn. They are worn very high just as present. Algernon?
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the dearest, sweetest, prettiest girl in the whole world. I don't care 2 pence about social possibilities.
Do not speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only those who can't get into it do that. Dear child, of course you know Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon, but I do not approve of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I never dreamed of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may address me as Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon. To speak frankly, I am not in favour of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding out each other's character before marriage, which I think is never advisable.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, I may almost even say, ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more can one desire?
It pains me very much to have to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew, but the fact is, I do not approve at all of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible! He is an Oxonian.
I fear there can be no possible doubt on the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house by the means of the false pretense of being my brother. Continuing in his disgraceful deception, he succeeded in the course of the afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin, and what makes his conduct all the more heartless, that he was perfectly well aware from the first that I have no brother, that I have never had a brother, and that I do not intend to have a brother, not even of any kind.
Sweet child, how old are you, dear?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
You are quite right in making some slight alteration. Indeed, no lady should ever be quite accurate about her age. It looks so calculating. Well, it will not be very long until you are of age and free from the restraints of tutelage.
It is only fair to tell you that, according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not come of age until she is 35.
35 is a very attractive age. Indeed, London society is full of women of the very highest birth, who have, of their own free choice, remained 35 for years.
Algie, could you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Of course, I felt it instinctively, but I don't think I could wait that long. I can hardly wait even 5 minutes for anybody.
Then what is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrieff.
My dear Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait until she is 35, a remark which I am bound to say shows a somewhat impatient nature, I would beg of you to reconsider your decision.
Oh, but my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolen, I will most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must be quite aware that what you propose is out of the question. That is not the destiny I propose for Gwendolen. Algernon, of course, can decide for himself. Come, dear, we have already missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss any more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christening.
The christening, sir? Is that not somewhat premature?
Both these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, the idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses.
Am I to understand, then, that there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think that as things are now, it will be of much practical use to either of us, Dr. CHASUBLE.
I am grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. As your present mood seems to me one peculiarly secular, I will return to the church at once. Indeed, I've just been informed that Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, I am on my way to join her.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment, sir. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected to education?
She's the most cultivated of ladies, and the very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
Well, in spite of what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches. She is nigh.
I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon. I've been waiting for you there for 1 hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism. Prism, where is that baby? Prism, 28 years ago, you left Lord Bracknell's house in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, the perambulator was discovered at midnight, standing alone in a remote corner of Bayswater. But the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
I admit with shame that I do not know, Lady Bracknell. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mention, a day that is forever branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag, in which I intended to place the manuscript of a work of fiction that I had written during my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I can never forgive myself, I placed the baby in the handbag and the manuscript in the bassinet.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contained that infant.
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
Gwendolen, wait here for me.
You're not too long. I will wait for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect Dr. Chasuble. I feel inclined to tell you that in families of high position, strange coincidences are not supposed to happen. In fact, they are hardly considered the thing.
Terrible. I hope it will last.
Is this the handbag, Miss Prism? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It seems to be mine. Yes, here is the injury it received during the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. Here is the stain on the lining caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage. And here, on the lock, are my initials. I had forgotten that in an extravagant mood, I had had them placed there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I'm delighted to have it returned to me so unexpectedly. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby that you placed in it.
You?
Yes. Mother!
Mr. Worthing, I am unmarried.
Unmarried? I do not deny that is a serious blow. But after all, who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered? Why should there be one law for men and another for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. There is the woman who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but could you kindly inform me who I am?
You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrieff, and consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother? Then I have a brother after all. I always said I had a brother. Cecily, how could you have ever doubted that I had a brother? Gwendolen, my unfortunate brother. Algy, you will have to behave to me with more respect in the future. You've never behaved to me like a brother in all your life.
Oh, not till today, old boy, I admit. I did my best, though I was out of practice.
My own, but what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you've become someone else?
Your decision on the subject of my name is irrevocable, I suppose?
I never change, except in my affections.
Then the question had better be cleared up at once. Aunt Augusta, at the time that Miss Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been bestowed upon you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened, that is settled. Now, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Well, being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at the present time recall what the general's Christian name was, but I have no doubt that he had one.
Algy, can't you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we were never on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
His name would appear in the army list of the period, I suppose, Aunt Augusta?
I have no doubt that his name would appear in any military directory.
The army list of the last 40 years are here. These delightful records should have been my constant study. M. Generals. Malum, Maxbob, Magley, what ghastly names they have. Markby, Migsby, Mobbs, Moncrieff. Lieutenant 1840, Colonel, Lieutenant, General 1869. Christian names Ernest John. I always told you, Gwendolen, my name was Ernest, didn't I?
Yes, my own Ernest. I felt from the first that you could have no other name.
Gwendolen, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out suddenly that all his life he's been telling nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel you are sure to change.
My own one.
Letitia.
Frederick, at last.
Cecily, at last.
Gwendolen, at last.
My nephew, you seem to be showing signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I've now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.
Well done, everyone. Thank you all for attending. We have a few minutes to have a little bit of a chat back with these fine actors. Can I call out my running crew and my also known as my alternate Cecily and Gwendolen from the other cast? We have 3 of the roles have been double cast for this show because we had so many fine actors. And so here we have the Cecily and Gwendolen from our other cast. And then Oliver, who played Lane and Merriman today, is the alternate Algernon, so he's in the other cast. And then Scott here, who played Algernon today, plays Lane and Merriman when they are on the other side. So we have some hardworking actors here, and they are all one cast altogether and supporting each other. Let's see here. So we're going to give the actors a moment to change their names, add their real names to their boxes. Feel free, audience members, to post any comments in the chat there. And if you look, there's a little Q&A thing down at the bottom of the screen. If you run your cursor over it, it gives you the opportunity to ask questions of the cast. And I just realized that it's getting late in the day, and so I'm just turning on a little bit of light here as my daylight fades. Okay, so let's see. We've got some comments from our audience. We have some claps from Ronald Ruiz. Thank you. The Ruiz family is here. How nice to see that you are in our audience. Lori, thank you for coming back to see the other cast, some of our greatest supporters and longtime AZHT participants. We are so thrilled to have you in the audience again. Jenny, Abby's mom said, great job, everyone. Agreed. Hi from the Ruiz family. And Jenny says, Elon would like to tell Abby that he liked all her scenes and that she really looks like an old lady. Did I pronounce that name right, Abby? Correct me.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Big applause from Mike Spillman. Cassie says, great job, very well done. And Judy Adams says, another superb performance, new cast members, delightful. So it's so nice. We have some of the same audience members from last night, some new audience members. Lonnie Axman said, I never tire of watching you all. Mother to 3 of our cast members. Raise your hands, 3 siblings. Yeah, so you can see we have 3 Axmans in this show. We could not have done this show without the Axman family, indeed. Not without any of you, but really there would have been a huge gap without the 3 of you. Jennifer A says, I love the matching handbags to overcome the Zoom obstacles. Yes, we had a lot of fun trying to match props. And Mike Spillman said, all did a great job overcoming the distance between you. Ruiz family says, you all did an amazing job. So glad I got to watch it. Is the whole Ruiz family there? Who's in attendance? Oh, the wine scene, hilarious. We had a lot of fun with all of it. So you can see these actors are not actually in fine English country locations and London flats. You can see they're just acting in a small 2-by-3-foot space at the most in front of a green sheet. That's the magic of Zoom, the magic of the green screen to transport us all to England. Teresa and Elena are there watching from the Ruiz family, Mom and Elena. Nice to see you guys. And then, oh, Emma said a thank you to Grammy and Grampy. They must have commented maybe directly to you there. Let's take a look in the Q&A box. A couple of things before we move on to that. Where am I ending? Where am I ending it? So the actors have all renamed themselves so that you can see their real name and their stage name. Some of them have them reversed. You have to guess which is the character name and which is the actor name. We have the two casts I introduced. I want to say thank you to all the parents for your support. They came up with some fabulous costumes. They helped their actors construct these little mini acting studios in their homes with the green screens and with space so that they could act uninterrupted while their families are watching in another room, right? So their families are off in another room watching the show from the audience perspective. And a special thanks to Tina Turner. I see a Tina in the audience. Tina Turner, is that you? Let me know in the comments. She is a longtime AZHT participant and supporter with her daughter, Maddie. And Maddie was unavailable to join us this time. We missed her so much, but Tina still generously offered to help with costumes. And she really helped with Tegan's costume, the Gwendolyn and the alternate cast specifically. And she's been a great support. So thank you to Tina. So I think it's funny that they talk about how tedious relations are, and then we have the three relations of the Axman family, and then Oliver and I down there are family relations as well. And I'm sure your families were offended by being called tedious, right? All your tedious relations are in the audience, right? Thank you for those tedious relations for arriving to watch the show. We don't really think you're tedious. How many of you, before we get to the question box, how many of you is this your first play? I know the answer. This was Kaitlyn's debut performance today, and we are so thrilled to see it. It was just absolutely lovely, Kaitlyn. I was so thrilled to watch you today. It was super special, this particular performance, and she did a wonderful job. Who would know this was the first time you've ever acted in a play? And then how many of you is this your first time at AZHT? Obviously Kaitlyn and also Scott. So Scott has acted elsewhere, and his older brother Nate has done many productions at AZHT, and we're very glad to have Scott with us. And then the other faces you see there have done at least one other show with us, if not a lot of them. And we're so happy that they all continue to participate, even though we're sort of stuck in this Zoom format. But we've had some fun with it. There are some things we can do in Zoom that we can't do on the live stage, so we've had a lot of fun with that. So let's take a look. Let's see any more comments in the box. I think they all did a great job from Kaitlyn's aunt in the show. Kaitlyn, amazing first performance. Obviously acted home within the family. Mike Spillman, is that a relation of yours, Kaitlyn?
It's my Grampy.
Oh, your Grampy. And so yes, you guys are good friends, and saying that you've obviously done some acting at home. Yes, a lot of times we all find that our actors have been acting and doing some dramatic performances internally their whole lives before they take the stage. Let's see here in the Q&A box. Let me pull that up here. The Lori said, what was the most challenging part of the process? So we've got some challenges related to this play specifically, and also to acting in Zoom, right? Or acting in general, right, Kaitlyn? So anyone who would like to go? I know some of you answered this last night, but this is a new audience in part. So go ahead and tell us your challenges. Emma.
Trying to continue acting even when you aren't speaking, like reacting, but you can't look at a specific person. So then you're just making faces randomly, basically is what it feels like. But
doesn't look like that, but it can feel like that, right? They've had to, it's harder to make eye contact with your scene partners when you're really technically making eye contact with everyone on stage at the same time by looking through the camera. But I think that there were many times that it translated that you were having some sort of inside looks or flirtations with a specific person on the screen. Scott.
I said this last time, but for the newer people, it's setting up the green screen and just, it's very small. Like if we were to adjust our canvas at all, like you would see like our actual backgrounds. Yeah.
It's harder than one would think to set up these little acting studios. See, as Ava's demonstrating there, if you nudge the camera just a little bit, you start to see things that you're not meant to see. The green screen edges show up, and then that makes it all wobbly. So they really have to place those cameras so that we only see green screen. And also, it's so much more challenging than you would think to get the actors at the proper level and properly framed by the screen so that they can stand up and sit down, but they aren't too far away, or their heads aren't cut off. And so what do you guys have to do if you stand up and you've gone off camera? What do you have to do?
You gotta squat.
You gotta squat. Yes, we practice a little lunge, a little bending at the knees, a little squatting to cheat down into the screen so that you can be seen both standing and sitting. Anything else? Other challenges? What about Ernest, this particular show? Annika.
Oh, hello. Well, I did say this yesterday. I think the lawyers were the ones who asked the question too. Hello. But I said, like, trying to get chemistry with the actors that you're acting against, like, that's much harder when you can't actually look at them.
Right. I know, and you do a lovely job of actually playing through the camera, Annika. But sometimes it's hard because all of our eyes naturally tend to look down at who we're interacting with, which can take our face and our eyes and our everything down. So these actors work very hard to make sure they're playing through the screen and not just down here at their keyboards. But they're trying to balance between looking at each other and looking at the camera so they can really send that energy out there. It is harder than they make it look. They don't make it look hard though. They make it look very easy. Any other challenges, guys? Feel free to unmute yourselves, actors, so you can just chime in. Ava.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday, but obviously costuming was very difficult. Yeah, I love you, Mom.
Yes, a special thanks to the parents for coming up with Victorian period clothing, especially that's even harder for the female roles, of course, because suits don't change that much over time, but boy, do dresses. And so, yes, it's interesting because we were fortunate. A couple of actors found that apparently puff sleeves are back in style, but not the full mutton chop sleeve that Lady Bracknell and Gwendolyn are sporting there. Emma, would you like to tell us? So Ava's mom made this fabulous Lady Bracknell costume. Kudos to Lonnie. It's absolutely incredible. Absolutely amazing. Sewed that from a Victorian pattern, correct?
Yeah.
Found a vintage pattern and just made that. And then Emma, I like the story of your costume. Would you like to share?
So like right before we joined the show, we found up in my mom's closet a dress from one of the plays that she was in when she was a teenager. So then we sewed it so that it would fit me, and that's what I'm using.
Isn't that lovely? I love that story so much, and how fortunate that she held on to that. It works so beautifully. Anyone else? Any challenges before we go on to the next answer? Annika, or next question rather. Annika.
I just wanted to say about the costumes. I find it awesome that Gwendolyn and Lady Bracknell actually match in this cast. You guys look related. And then I thought it was awesome in the other cast that Mia and Gwendolyn sort of match with the colors as well. So it works in either cast.
It does, yes, and all sort of shades of purple, magentas, like all in the same spectrum. Scott, yes.
So this is like for me, this is a newer issue, but I'm sure other people experience this too. Interestingly enough, not just green things blend into the background. Like even things that are just like very similar to green, things like cyan, like those types of colors. They blend in too. So I was using a different like necktie before, and then I couldn't use it anymore. So I had to switch at the last minute because like it didn't have any green on it, but it still blended in. So
Yes, we discovered during the final dress rehearsal that his tie had some, some sort of shade of greenish blue, and it was close enough to the green screen that parts of the room were appearing right here on his chest. And so it was a bit distracting. So he found this other lovely polka dot tie, and his mother did some research and found that polka dots were quite popular during Victorian times. So I love that. We've had a lot of fun researching what was actually in existence during Victorian times, trying to make this as authentic as possible, setting our play. You can set this play anytime, and it's been done in many time periods, but we decided to just go for it with the original year that it was produced and set in 1895. Let's see, Lori said, way to go. Lori said, I answered that question. On to Emily Campbell says, way to go, Abby, great work. Agreed. Miss Prism cracks me up. It's so funny. She's so subtle, but I'm sitting here chuckling at almost every one of your lines. So funny. She's so dry. It's so hilarious. Trista K says, wonderful job with your accents. Amazing. Loved it so much. Impressed with how well you all executed the play via Zoom. Yes, I agree. And how many of you, is this the first time you've done an accent on stage? I think that's all of you. Hands up, right, Oliver? Nothing. Yes, I think it was the first time for all of them. And we haven't done a lot of accents at AZHT in the past. Usually we have quite large casts and it's quite challenging. We're doing so many other things, but we thought smaller cast, and in this format where we aren't doing a lot of stage blocking, well, we found that it was actually took longer than we thought to actually block these teeny little screens. But we thought, let's do something else since we can't do a lot of the other things we normally do. So we thought, well, let's do accents this time, and they've done it just beautifully. Let's see, next question or comment. Let me see, I just jumped around my screen. Anonymous attendee. Oh, very mysterious. Great job, Scott and everyone. Oh, I miss AZHT Nate. So it says anonymous, but it's actually Nate there, Scott's brother. We miss you too, Nate. AZHT loved having you participate. And Lonnie says, do you have a favorite line that you get to say? Anyone? Ava.
All of my lines.
All of them. Oscar Wilde wrote a lot of zingers, didn't he? Abby, what's your favorite?
It seems to me a blessing of the extremely obvious kind.
Yes, that is one of my favorite lines too. Emma?
Sorry, kind of forgot it. I was reliving that scene. In fact, I'm never wrong.
Yes, I was hoping you would say that. That is really hilarious because she's quite often wrong. Kaitlyn.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I'm sure he cannot be quite well.
Yes, I love that too. And then Lucy.
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
Yes.
I love the follow-up line to that as well.
Yes, which is, Ava?
Oh, okay. You are quite right in making some slight alteration. Indeed, no woman should ever be quite accurate about her age. It looks so calculating.
I love it so much. Let's see here. Anyone else favorite lines? Oh, Emma, did you have another one?
Yes. Yeah, not mine. It's Dr. Chasuble's. And it's like, my metaphor was drawn from bees.
Right. After he says he hangs upon Miss Prism's lips. Scott, yes.
My favorite one is, it's very petty. It's well, I don't like your clothes. It's a long line. I'm not gonna say the full thing, but it's like, well, I don't like your clothes, because it's so petty. Like, just these very aristocratic people are like, it's like, oh, I don't like that. Oh, well, no, I don't like your clothes.
I do. It's very enjoyable. I love that line. Annika.
Well, going off of Scott, I also like the line in a similar way where I'm like, you shouldn't talk to Cecily like that. I don't like it. But my favorite line is the one where I'm complaining about how disgraceful Algernon is. He ate all the muffins.
Every single muffin. He's terribly amoral, right? To have eaten all the muffins. Definitely slighting his character. Let's see here. I think the next question, someone's closing questions for me. I don't know if that's an actor helping me out there. So I hope I didn't skip any. Mike Spillane says, would you choose to do another Zoom production in the future? That's a great question. Would you act in Zoom again, Emma?
I would.
I would too.
How many of you would act in Zoom again? Only a few? I need more actors for my next Zoom production. I think it has its, I mean, it has its pluses and minuses, but I think there's a lot of pluses too, right? And now you're all set up. You all have green screens. You know how it's done. It'd be so easy next time, right? Yes, I think there's something to be said about it. And in fact, Zoom theater has been wildly popular for many theater companies during the pandemic. And it's almost become its very own art form. I've watched other Zoom productions, gotten ideas from those, but also gotten some ideas of what not to do. I mean, little things like we tried to find different angles of the same background image, you know, of an actual place. But if you have everyone with the same exact image, you get a terrible funhouse mirror tiling effect. And so that was a little like challenge you might not think about, was finding some place that we could get different angles, you know, just so there was a little bit a difference between the actors' backgrounds. So they don't look like it's just like like we've put mirrors against each other. And we've had a lot of fun with that. The accents were spot on. How did you get ready for it? That's from the Ruiz family. How did you do that? How did you guys learn an English? What kind of English accent did you do? That was a question for last night. What kind? There's a lot of different English accents. Annika.
Go ahead, Lucy.
Or Lucy.
No.
Either. Say it together.
You can go.
I'll try you take the time from me. Okay. Well, the dialect that we were using is called received pronunciation. I think there's another name, but I can't remember. Basically, what would be on British TV.
Yeah, sometimes often referred to as the BBC accent, but received pronunciation, RP for short, is kind of what we think of as the classic standard British accent. It was what was taught at Oxford. And so if you were well educated and upper class, then you would speak with this kind of accent. It's evolved over time. Certainly the Victorian RP is different than the modern one, which has changed a bit. So we try to go back to Victorian times a little bit, but received pronunciation, a standard British accent. Now, how did you all learn it? What did we do?
Answer this one.
Say that again.
Lucy, you want to take this one?
Lucy, can you field that one? Field that question?
Well, there were these really helpful recordings. I can't remember the name of the dialect coach that did them, like that recorded them, but there were a bunch of them and they were really helpful.
David Allen Stern. He's a well-known American dialect coach, theater educator. Unfortunately, he has put a lot of different accents, 24 to be exact, different accents, and then some within that, I think that some different British ones within that, into a curriculum with audio. So we went ahead and got that, and we essentially hired David Allen Stern remotely as our accent coach, and we just started going over it all together, and they listened to their audio tapes and they studied that forward mouth posture and listened, listening to other people do the accent. Maybe you watch some TV shows or movies and they just practice, right? Some of it's muscle memory. It takes different muscles to speak with an English accent than an American accent. Frustrations and victories in this play for the director. Oh, I count everything a victory. Frustrations were all merely technical, trying to, things that would seem simple, getting the PowerPoint virtual program to play without freezing up on me, and getting that synced with music and things like that. Some of the technical parts of Zoom. But otherwise, I count this all a victory. Wouldn't you guys say that we would count this as a victory? The frustrations were minor technical glitches for the most part. I really quite enjoy it. There's a lot to be said for Zoom. Emma is oh yes, that's a good thing to mention. Emma is acting from Oregon. When we began this process, she was here with us in Arizona and she had to move out of state. And so she continued participating in our production now from Oregon. So that's definitely a benefit of Zoom. If one has to suddenly move out of state, you can still participate in the production. And last fall, we had an actor who had previously participated with us in Phoenix, but had moved out, I think past Sholo somewhere, and so was able to continue participating remotely. So certainly that, and the fact that our audience members can tune in from anywhere. But I'm glad you pointed that out. Yes, that's very interesting that Emma, I think, is acting so far away from the rest of us. We're all over the valley, but Emma moved to Oregon. What were your extra challenges when preparing for the play and moving, Emma? That was quite a lot she managed to push through, moving right in the middle of, basically right before Tech Week.
Yeah, mostly it was just that, like, I basically couldn't set up my green screen or my table or anything until we got to an Airbnb for a week. And for like the past 3 weeks before that, I had just been in hotels. So then I couldn't actually do the green screen or try to do any prep work with playing with levels. It was just like, I didn't know where I was going to end up. So I was just.
Yeah, and I mean, talk about the show must go on. She really made it go on. She just pushed right through with all of that. And she was finally able to settle down enough for this week and put up her little acting studio. And I think that's just incredible. That's really amazing. And a little shout out to Amelie, our other actor who was unable to perform at the last minute this week due to a family emergency. We miss her. And so Scott and Oliver, who play ALGERNON, stepped in and played the Lane and Merriman for the opposite cast, which Amelie was doing prior to that. So they've really stepped up and did a good job this week, being thrown into those roles just this week. Tina says, what is your favorite part of doing a Zoom performance? What's the best thing about Zoom? And we've talked about some of the benefits. Anyone? Scott?
So I probably actually, to be honest, that's going to sound very corny and everyone's going to be like, oh, come on, Scott. But actually, honestly, having my family very like in the same house as and being there and like actually not like backstage, I guess, because I deal with a lot of anxiety and like I panic between acts and like, yeah, they can calm me down.
So that's nice to have that sort of safe space and that support and being somewhere you're comfortable then, huh? And you've been on stage. I mean, Scott's been on stage plenty of times, but he's finding that this Zoom format is lovely for you, yes? And to have the whole family there for support.
Yeah.
Yes, and normally your family is not backstage with you, maybe a couple of volunteers, but normally they're out in the audience and you're stuck backstage by yourself, away from them, right? But in this case, it's interesting that these actors are just down the hall from their family audience members, and that between things they can run into each other, right? If you run out, you see your family and part of your audience in between acts. Emma.
My parents are tormenting me right now. They're behind my screen, making me laugh hysterically.
That's so funny. We should tell them to come on screen and say hello. I forgot we did that last fall. We said any parents who would like to come on so we can say thank you are welcome to join their actors on stage, because these actors are not working completely autonomously. They really do have a support system. Somebody usually is helping them set up, run lines with them. They didn't have to drive them anywhere this time for the most part, but they might have had to drive them to find props or costumes. Kaitlyn, yes.
I'd just like to say shout out to my dad for being amazing and getting me last minute props today. He's wonderful and I don't give him enough credit for it.
Oh, thanks, Dad. That's lovely. Everyone else has a look on their face like, am I supposed to thank my parents too? Oh, let's see here. We have a couple more comments here. Let's see. Emma and Ava, outstanding costumes and hair just added to our characters. And then Annika had a lot of facial expressions. She did a good job portraying a male. Not easy. Definitely. I know. I completely forget that Annika is, female playing Jack. And I mean, she's so believable that I don't think anything about it at all. And she's so dapper with her new haircut. I love it so much. I just now want to cast her in all the next array of English romantic comedies. She's the new Hugh Grant, the new Colin Firth, the new, really, I'm like, I just cast her immediately. I just want her to be in a romantic comedy. have to run, but thank you for this show. It was amazing. That was from the Ruiz family a few minutes ago. And then, is that say from Lonnie Axman, I'm still in my pajamas. There's a Zoom benefit. It's a come as you are. The audience doesn't have to get dressed. I think my 8-year-old's still in his pajamas watching today. I don't know if he'd be happy about me admitting that. Yes, and then Ava, do you still have pajama bottoms on beneath that fabulous costume? I did tell the actors at one point, you might want to dress up all the way to the bottom, you know, maybe not completely in period, but maybe with a skirt for the girls or whatever. Maybe it'll make you feel more your characters, but they do such an excellent job in pajama bottoms that I would never know that they have comfortable pajama bottoms on the bottom in some cases, or shorts, I think. Dr. CHASUBLE, do you have shorts on today?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is fun that we really, Zoom is a bit forgiving for costume. I mean, these costumes are fabulous, but in some cases there are things going on behind that we can't see because the actor never has to walk on and off stage. So if something's hidden in the back, right? So we're letting you have a glimpse with our chat back into sort of a behind the scenes. That's part of our theater education, is educating our audience a little bit too and divulging some of our secrets. Congratulations to all the proud, amazing parents that have supported these actors and actresses. That's from Mike Spillman. Indeed. Thank you to you all. Did I miss any questions, anything? It is really cool to see the players embody the characters. Isn't it really something? They play quite an array of ages, and every single one of them is playing a character older than themselves. The Cecilys play the closest in age, but some of them are playing characters as in like Lady B's. In the case of Lady B, that's at least 4 times her age. And so they really did an amazing job with that. Any other questions or comments from the audience, from the actors, from anything? Am I forgetting? I'm wondering if I'm forgetting anything. We aren't sure about our fall program yet. Follow us on Facebook. There are 2 more performances. So if you just saw this cast today and didn't get to see the other ALGERNON, Cecily, and Gwendolyn, you can tune in tomorrow at noon for their closing performance. It's free and it's the exact same link. And then this cast this Cecily, Gwendolyn, ALGERNON will play tomorrow night at 6. And all the other actors are in all the performances. So feel free to join us again. Emma.
Just thank you, Carrie.
Aww.
You did an amazing job, and you just you're so awesome. Also, your birthday was on Tech Week, and you still.
My birthday does tend to fall in Tech Week ever since I joined AZHT. It either falls on a performance day or in Tech Week, and it was Monday, but it's absolutely my favorite thing to do. So I will take theater on my birthday any old year. So I'm very pleased. It just seems perfect. Aw, thanks you guys. Thank you all for a wonderful performance, for all your hard work. Thank you to our audience for joining us. Come back again if you like. And we'll see you. I've got standing ovations there. Very nice. Thank you all. Bye. Everyone, wave goodbye.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.